Hello, everyone. Welcome to our channel. I am very excited about today's discussion. This is something that I have been wanting to do for a long time. And I think there is no better time to discuss this than now because the transgender persons rules have also been passed very recently as on in September 2020. So I think I would want to introduce Nishant here. Nishant is the Chief Operating Officer at Periphery. It's a social startup that is focused at creating employment opportunities for the transgender community. Prior to working with Periphery, Nishant managed his family business for about 6 years, and he was just passionate in this space, and that's the kind of sense that he had, and it kind of drew him towards doing this work, try and understand more about the work that he's doing, and he's just very passionate about all things design and photography. So I think, Nishant, I understand that you started Periphery sometime in 2017. That is much before, the law that we had in 2019 and 20 now. So I think it will be really interesting to understand what got you to, start an initiative like that, and how has that journey been so far?
Shivangi, first of all, thank you so much for having me. And getting to the answer of the question that you had asked, I was not personally involved in starting Periphery. Neelam had founded this organization in 2017, start of 2017. And she was working at Goldman Sachs before. And she had a social project where she had to meet a transgender person and understand about their life, their issues, and things. And when she did that, she met a person named Uma, and this person was a trans woman running her own NGO, educated in engineering, who was not able to get a job.
Yeah.
So Neelam presented this idea to Goldman Sachs. They started working on it. They said that the idea is really, really good and stuff. But since corporates need a lot of time to get approvals and get things in, Neelam didn't want to wait. So she just left her job, started spending a lot of time with the grassroots level of the community, understood what is the solution that will actually work for the community and what is it that they're doing right now. She started by placing one candidate, helping one candidate out for her business. These were the two ways where she tried creating financial independence in their life. And once it became a success, once a couple of months went by and people were doing good in their jobs, she incorporated the organization. I came in December of 2017. And the reason why I joined was very simple. I met Neelam at a friend's wedding. And once at the wedding, I asked her what she did and everything. I have known Neelam for the past 10 years now. And I absolutely had no clue that she was doing something like this. So I offered to help her out as a social media intern. Did that for about one month or so. At the end of my internship, I met a person named Madhu, and she was earning a salary of a mere 8,000 rupees. She was in a job where she got a salary of 8,000 rupees. She was a tea seller. And after, when she was doing that job, after 30 years of her life, her family accepted her. She performed all the rituals at her brother's wedding as a female. And that was the time where I realized that this work is actually leading on to a lot of good things. Like, it's not just about getting someone a job or getting someone a place where they are accepted and things. It's about making them come back with their families. Like, we're actually stitching broken families together. And that is what we're doing truly. It's not about diversity, it's not about inclusion, it's just about making someone feel like they're also accepted and they're also part of the family. And
Yeah.
yeah, that's what we do, and that's what drives us every day. Like, that's the purpose that we have, and that is what drives us every day.
Yeah, that just sounds, so amazing. I remember last year when I had started researching on the law, more from a, a legal aspect, I came across your website, and I was so pleasantly surprised that something like this exists. And because frankly, most of us who do not work in the space, or who have not interacted too much, would not even know that something like this exists. That you are working something, on even an initiative or a venture like this. So it was really amazing for me to see this. And ever since, I have wanted to have this discussion that, what prompted you to do it. And I think I've got that answer today. In terms of the challenges that you've been facing, I'm sure there would have been quite a few along the way. So if you could just help us understand few of those.
Challenges, see, honestly speaking, as a we never incorporated as an NGO. So getting funds, arranging for funds was never an issue for us. So I'm not even going to bring that in. We are a self-sufficient organization that works on profit, and we don't charge anything from the community for any of our services. We provide them training, we provide them shelter for a month if they're coming and training with us. We provide them food. All their expenses are taken care by us. Even their placement, making sure that their post placement is going smoothly. Everything is taken care for free. Our only charges are from our client side. And coming back to the question again, the challenges that we majorly faced initially was, since we were also not from the community, Neelam and I both were from outside the community. It took them a little time to start trusting us initially from the community's end. And from the client's end, though initially we had a few people who were really, really supporting us, it took us a really long time to build a base where we could show people that talent exists in this category. Like, people didn't know that usually we see transgender people on the streets begging, or late at nights they'll be standing at the road for sex work. These are the two things that I've seen them do. Also, I've seen them in temples and stuff, but that has been very, very less. That experience of them has been very less. So we are usually used to seeing people in a certain way, and that was really hard to change. But after we proved in with a few role models, and also a lot of huge companies started accepting transgender people in their workplace, slowly these things started changing. So we are working towards it. I'm not saying that it was it was a huge challenge for us, but yeah, there were minor hindrances, and they'll always there. What we realized was the community needed our support more than we needed the community support. So we didn't think about any of these challenges in so much depth. That was the only thing.
That makes sense. And so, what were some of the, you mentioned that you ensure that there is a little bit of training that happens, and then help with the placements, etc. So, what are typically, some of the things that you do to ensure that that inclusion or that, if I say acceptance by organizations or in the workplace, or to move away from that stereotypical thought process that there is only a certain kind of a thing that person from so community can do. So, what are some of the things that you've done to kind of make that better?
So we do, whenever we make placements, we do sensitization workshops, and these sensitization workshops contain everything, like all the science behind it, what is the reason behind it, how should you address people from the community, what name should you call, things to say, things not to say, what policies are good for the organization, what policies are not good for the organization, what policies make organizations inclusive and what don't. Um, so from the corporate end, we run a sensitization workshop where a person from our team and 2 to 3 people from the community, they go and meet the people, talk to them about their life, their story, and the hardships that they have faced, even for no reason. And what is the reason behind it? The reason is just gender, that I don't identify with the body that I'm born in. So the fact that how stupid it sounds itself, people it just immediately change their thinking about the community. Then we do a few games. We through games we make them realize that how privileged a cisgender person is and how unprivileged a transgender person is. Like the things that we consider as basic necessities, it's a privilege for the community. Having a family, having a good medical support, having good educational support, these things we take for granted. And the transgender community, it's a privilege for them to be in their own house, to be with their parents. So things like that, making people realize about this. Training goes towards both sides. It's not just training and sensitizing the corporates, it's also about training the candidates, sensitizing them about the work that they're going to have. And so they also behave in a workplace, because uh, not to say something wrong or something judgmental, but when you are on the street daily, when you are begging, when you're going for sex work, you get used to a particular lifestyle. And to get you out of that lifestyle, we have a 30-day residential training program. And this training program um, is usually in our own campus. There are around 30 people in one batch from various parts of India. They come together, they learn together for 30 days. They stay together, they have fun. And at the end of this thing, we start placing them in organization. And this training covers a lot of corporate skills, training like communication, basic necessities that are required. And you don't have to have any qualification for this. You can just come in, say, with knowing one language, speaking one language, and we can surely get you placed at the end of 30 to 45 days. As if you put in the effort, that is, like if you guarantee us that you will put in the effort, we can get you placed for sure. So these are the two areas that we work on to curb say the acceptance and the discrimination problem a bit, and to also open the eyes of the world, saying that there is a huge population that has not been tapped into, that has not been, like, one in every 10 people, there is a chance that one in every 10% is a transgender people. So person, and in a population like India, there are 1 crore, 1.5 crore people who have not been in jobs, who have never been in jobs. So those are the challenges that we try to curb from our end.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so, whenever you have, gone ahead with these placements since 2017, you've been doing this. So when organizations, they've accepted or they've, had people on board, what kind of measures do you see them taking? Apart from sensitization, this part I understood, that there is a certain amount of sensitization that the organization members will also need to have to be able to probably use the right kind of pronouns, to be able to talk the right way, to not make those very biased comments, the kinds we kind of keep hearing. Apart from sensitization, however, do you think facilities wise, in terms of say gender neutral bathrooms, or accessing of locker rooms, dress codes, have you also seen any of those changes taking place so far?
Usually, the organization that we place candidates in, there is no dress code that is involved. A candidate is free to wear whatever he or she chooses to wear. In terms of organization taking efforts, we have had a lot of organizations that made sure that gender neutral washrooms are available. Most of the organizations that we work with already have it in their infrastructure now. In 2017, most of them didn't have it, but they started working on it during that time. In terms of pronouns, a lot of organizations make sure that if a person is from the community, their preferred name and preferred pronoun is given on their ID card. Even though their documents might be in their own name, everyone will reach out to them and call them with that particular name only that he or she prefers, and the pronouns that he or she prefers. Also, in the signature of the email, um, it's like most of the DNI people from the DNI side do this. They add in their preferred name and their pronouns. So most of the organizations are very say strict now about pronouns and preferred name. Also, a lot of organizations provide medical benefits, insurance coverage for surgeries. They also provide partner privileges, if I'm not wrong. There are a lot of organizations that have just started working on this, but organizations like ThoughtWorks, Walmart, Accenture, these organizations have been doing it for years now. It's been in their policies even before transgender hiring was an agenda in India, because they've had really progressive policies from the US. So these are the kind of policies that are there. These are the kind of policies that also helps organization retain talent and attract new talent from the LGBT community. So it's a win-win situation for the organization basically.
Yeah, I think it's really great to hear, when you mentioned that medical benefits and insurance benefits is something that is being provided, especially as far as surgery is concerned. Because I remember when I was looking up on, this particular aspect, I was looking at the insurance guidelines of our country, the rules, regulations, as well as generally the law itself. It talked about cosmetic surgery, and a lot of the news that I was reading talked about how sex reassignment surgery would fall under cosmetic surgery, and therefore the insurance is not, applicable. So I'm very happy to hear that as far as policies are concerned, organizations are doing that, and I'm
There are,
assuming.
sorry to interrupt, there are a lot of organizations that also cover cosmetic surgery as well. So
Right, right.
And it all depends on basically your luck and which organization you get in. Like a lot of organizations, the process has not even started, but a lot of them are so next level right now that people can't even imagine that, oh, these are the privileges that I will be getting. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
they can't imagine that.
Absolutely. And I think the beauty of this kind of a discussion also is that, if there are some organizations who have gone above and beyond, and probably if the law does not directly allow it, maybe there are specific things being done by way of allowing, probably putting it under the cosmetic surgery bracket or whatever other, bracket. The point is that those kind of benefits are being provided. So really for, an organization, it's not really an excuse to say, the law does not allow it, because the law in some form or the other does allow it. And even if you look at the new law, there are these kind of provisions that are coming out. I'm sure that eventually insurance will also go through its own set of amendments and
It,
changes.
it has to, right?
Yeah,
If it needs to continue to be what it is, then it has to enter into this as well.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So right. So I think that's again, a very interesting, kind of information that you've given. I also wanted to check with you that as far as transgender person is concerned, here we are talking about gender, and when it comes to the LGBTQ plus community as a whole, it's also about sexuality. So when you work with organizations, or when you talk about placements, etc., do you work only with transgender persons or the entire community as such?
So in
And
terms, yeah,
sorry,
yeah, continue.
now go on, go on.
Sorry. I have a
It was just a part two to the question. The part two was whether the policies that you see in organizations, they are for, again, transgender persons only, or does it cover the entire community?
I'm really sorry. I have a habit of interrupting.
No
So,
problem. No problem.
genuine, nothing personal.
No problem.
Say we focus on the entire community in terms of our sensitization workshops and things like that. But our recruitment service is only focused on the transgender and intersex community in India. Our training and recruitment wing only focuses on the transgender community because we realize that there is a physical difference that is seen in the candidate where a bias is induced immediately. So that is the reason why we are currently only focused on the transgender and intersex community in terms of our recruitment. In terms of our sensitization workshop, we do it for the entire community. We explain to them about the entire spectrum and what is the transgender and the LGB spectrum. Like what is sexuality and what is gender and how are these two different from each other.
Yeah.
So that is the gist of it. Um, we solely focus on the transgender and intersex community, but there are people who reach out to us from the LGB community, and we also support them in terms of connecting them with organizations that work in the field that they need support in. So
Yeah, I think generally also often seen that there is a confusion about the two terms and how they are different in reality, and how some of the aspects could be very very relevant to the transgender intersex community as such, because as you're rightly saying, there are physical differences as well sometimes, which are very evidently visible also, which leads to further bias. So I think, yeah, that also helps a lot. And if sensitization is happening in those cases, then that's again brilliant. Uh, so Nisha, just the last, yeah,
sensitization, sorry, mainly with the sensitization work also, we focus firstly on the leadership team and then we focus on, say, the HR team, talent acquisition team and stuff, because
mm,
they'll be the first point of contact to any this thing. So if the leadership is up for it, then the entire organization has to be up for it. So we push for that one.
yeah, definitely, it has to be a top-down approach, as you're rightly saying. Yeah, that's correct. So, Nishant, have you seen, over the years now, from before the law, post the law, do you see any changes in terms of the number of people now are seeking requirements or is seeking requests, where the transgender persons could be recruited?
Yeah, we have seen a little bit of a burst recently, but we are not sure if it's because of the law or because of COVID. Because before COVID, also a lot of organizations were working with us, and everyone is interested in hiring. Before the Supreme Court slashed down Section 377, also there were a lot of people hiring LGBT talent. So it never started after a law was passed in India,
Mm,
because most of the organizations that we work with already had these policies that they need to be diverse, they need to be inclusive. And obviously it's definitely going to help us out in reaching to small businesses, making people getting people placed in small businesses and things like that. But overall, in general, people who really want to impact the community did it in some way or the other. Either they came trained with us, either they helped in providing placement opportunities to the candidates, either they did sensitization workshops with other organizations. People who really wanted people to start working in organizations really did it from the day one. Like they supported us from then, and they're still supporting us now.
Okay. This is really nice to hear because, eventually, slowly and gradually over the years, the kind of work that you're doing, it's only then that this whole society begins to kind of change also and becomes inclusive. So I think all of these, voices or all of these steps being taken, they really help.
Yeah.
Each one of it helps, I guess. So yeah. So Nishant, mostly as a parting away note, what is the kind of message you would want to give to organizations generally who may still be kind of facing a challenge in terms of wondering whether or not to hire, wanting to but they don't know what to do about it, or probably not believing in the idea itself? Because I remember back when I had started working in the space of sexual harassment as well, and my entire firm also. There was a lot of discussion about women and whether they should be, working at all or not. And, if you hire a woman, you have all this sexual harassment related problems, might as well not hire at all. So, those same kind of challenges, it's something which is foreseeable for this community as well, because those questions that, okay, facilities banane padenge, we'll have to make policies, we'll have to do so much work. Why do all of this? Let's not just hire. So, what is it that you would want to say about this?
I want to divide it into two parts. See, first thing, I want to make it clear that if you're hiring a person from the community, not all of the things that I have mentioned, say policy, restroom, pronouns, preferred name, not all of the things are mandatory. It always depends from person to person. Now, I may identify as a female, for example, and I might think that my name is, say, Shaina or someone, okay, for example. And the other person may not know that. And he or she might just call me Nishant, for example. And so for me, it's not a matter of identity, right? For me, my name is not my identity. Who I am is my identity. But for a few people, they don't like their legal names. They want to be called with a certain name. And it all depends from person to person. Like, not everyone will want to transition also, will want to do the entire surgery also. So it all depends from, is very different for each and every single person is what I would say here. And secondly, in terms of organizational wise, policies are not mandatory. It's a good to have. It's good to have because it will attract talent, it will retain talent, it will make the person feel like they're accepted and they belong in the organization. Um, I think that's about it from my end. Like I don't feel like it's a challenge even if you have nothing, and even if you have a little bit, it's a good thing. The main thing is that if you support someone with a job, with a salary, they will not have to beg on the street.
Yeah.
It's as simple. Like, and there is huge business case to it as well. It's not just like if Walmart was only hired people from the US, they will not be able to survive in the Indian market. They'll not know what is working here. So if you want to reach, and the LGBT community is a true $1 trillion industry in a year, like a yearly $1 trillion industry it is. And if you don't want to tap in that market, then
Yeah.
I think you have to do business. Like, what is more important to you?
Yeah. Yeah, I think, and I think it's very well put that, after all, it's about the job that you're giving, and which has to be based on merit. And, policies, yeah, might be time consuming, etc., but they are not absolutely mandatory to have all of them. Even if we start off with small steps, I think it should be good enough.
Preferred
So,
name and pronouns. If you're willing to do that much, it's okay to start. You can hire people. You can
yeah,
easily hire people. You can get a lot of work done,
yeah,
and you don't even need to do much. And it's a journey. Once you start hiring one person, you will realize, oh, I should have done this better. I should have done this like this. Now we need to have a proper restroom just for everyone, and it shouldn't be like transgender restroom. It should be all inclusive restroom. Anyone can use that restroom.
yeah,
Even me, even you, even a transgender person, even a PWD person. Like anyone can use that. So
yeah,
it's as simple as that.
yeah, absolutely. I think that's fantastic, and I think I'm going to end on this note because it's a beautiful way of really ending this discussion. So Nishant, thank you so much for having this discussion with us today.
Thank you.
Really
Thank you for
appreciate. Thank
having
you.
and for waiting on me because last time I had to ditch last time. I'm really sorry.
No, no, that's absolutely fine. Thank you so much.
Take care. Bye bye.
Bye bye.